Ciao, I'm Enzo.
I'm Celia,
This is Piazza Talk, a channel about our life in Lucca.
and in the Tuscan Hills. Ciao a tutti. We often get asked about buying houses in Italy, but particularly in Lucca, as many dream of this through romantic films and books. But how easy is it actually to buy a house? So we thought we'd talk to our friend Lorrain, who has worked in the industry for many years in Lucca and is an Italian South African. So she's very easy to work with because she speaks perfect English, she's bilingual, and she understands also from a foreigner's point of view and tries to guide them through the process of buying a house in Italy, which differs from many other countries. So Lorraine has also appeared on House Hunters International. So she's used to, as I say, dealing with foreigners. So Lorraine, thank you for being with us and helping us in this.
Hi.
So first of all, obviously, people who want to buy a property have to choose what sort of property they want to buy, whether they want to buy, for example, in the old centre of Lucca, or in the suburbs, or in the country. And I think we're talking mainly about the sort of properties that are available in this area, because obviously in Puglia there are different sorts of farmhouses than here. So we're concentrating on around here in Tuscany. So of course we have, in the country, we have things like a casa colonica, which is something that people get very confused about.
Yeah, or a rustico.
Or a rustico.
Yeah.
And are they the same thing?
Not quite. A rustico is more of a rustic country home, whereas a casa colonica, I would say, is more as a country villa home.
And people also don't really understand these rustico and casa colonica and call everything a villa, but actually a villa is something completely different.
Sure, a villa is a fancy house.
You can have a historic villa.
But the villa generally are more of a classical, they're very big. These are the antique villas.
And also I think the other word that's slightly confusing, and certainly when I first started Italian, a palazzo. You know, we think a palace. Well, it's not actually a palace, is it?
No, it's not. A palazzo can just be a building. You know, even you would refer to even a block of flats as a palazzo.
And then you have more modern sorts of properties. You have blocks of flats that are condominium.
You will only get that really outside the walls, the centro storico.
And also, if you have lots of flats in a block, in a palazzo, in the city, you usually have a condominium there as well.
Well, that
who
depends.
Sort of runs the building.
To have a condominium with an administrator, okay, you don't necessarily need it.
Sì.
La tastiera. Yeah.
They're more outside town.
Yes, and they're sort of little modern attached terraced houses,
Sure.
basically.
Yes.
And terratetto are like casas often in cortili.
Yes, exactly. A terratetto is within a communal court. It's got a communal court, and the parking would also be communal. Okay. And generally they don't have any kind of garden.
Yeah.
Whereas a villetta schiera, you generally have your own entrance and you have your own parking and a little garden generally, but that's all outside the walls.
If you buy a property, does that automatically give you the right to stay here?
If you are an EU citizen, then you can buy a property in Italy and actually live it. But anyone out of the EU can only stay for a certain period of time, which is, I think it's 3 months or...
Yeah, it's 90
Yes.
days in 180.
90 days.
So
Yes.
6 months a year, but broken up.
Broken up, that's right.
But I also think what people make the mistake, it doesn't mean you can spend 90 days in your house in Italy and then you go out, because if you decide to go to France, that counts into your 90 days for a holiday. So it's 90 days within the EU
And Schengen.
in Schengen and 90 days outside. So it doesn't give you the right for residency, and you must sort out your own visa.
If you actually want to live permanently in Italy, you need to have certain things in place depending on your circumstances.
And the only difference that I can see that it makes a difference is that if you want to become a resident here and everything else, if you own a property, it means you have an address here, which helps you. Because in order to apply for residency, you need a rental contract, you need an address in Italy. So if you have a property, you already have an address. And that's the only help that it gives you.
Exactly.
We've come here, we've decided we're going to buy our house. The first thing you really need is a codice fiscale, isn't it? You need
That's
the tax
absolutely,
code.
yes. That tax code is very easy to get. You don't pay for it, okay? And you go to the offices of the Agenzia delle Entrate.
The tax office.
Yes, the tax office, so to speak. You go with your passport and they will give you it's basically an Italian ID code. You can't do anything here without it. Whether you want to open a bank account or buy a property or do a rental. I believe that you can do it also, for instance, in America, you can do it online.
If somebody comes in here, is it something you'd help them with?
Yes, for sure.
Now, you've got your property. What happens next?
What do you do?
You've seen a whole lot of viewings, okay? And you've decided you want to buy a specific, let's call it an apartment, okay? The first step is to put in an offer to purchase, which we call a proposta d'acquisto, okay? Offer to purchase, and it's a very basic offer to purchase. It's not very complicated. It's that the owner agrees to sell and at the price. The offer to purchase also states how you want the payments to be done. The offer to purchase is always subject to all the verifications being done, the surveys, everything on the apartment.
At this point, it's more like an intention to buy the property.
Exactly.
And it means that the property is taken off the market for a certain amount of time while all the...
Not necessarily. They don't necessarily take it off the market. Say he accepts your offer. He might not take it directly off the market, because if someone else comes along and puts in a higher offer, he might turn around and say to you, no, I'm not going to sell to you anymore. It's the second step that is the more important, that is more binding, which is the compromesso, which is when you do the preliminary contract, because then you actually pay money.
Yes.
Right.
Until money doesn't actually get changed hands and given into the hands of the owner, you don't have the 100% surety that he will sell the property to you.
And this is the point that you also need to employ the most important person, your geometer.
Yes. Once your offer to purchase has been accepted by the owner, then you must employ a geometer. I mean,
Which
the
is a
agent.
sort of surveyor.
It's a surveyor, and he takes care of all the
legal and also
yes, not
structure.
just the legal, but the structure.
Yes.
He checks out the whole apartment, whether there's been loans taken on it. He checks everything out, and he prepares then the preliminary contract. Say, for instance, there is something structurally not correct, which is in the council, the floor plan states that there's a wall, and there is actually no wall. What the geometer then, by the time that you get to your preliminary contract, he's checked all that.
Okay, so we actually employ
And-
geometer when you do the first agreement with the owner.
Yes.
So you better get geometer in as soon as possible so they can sort
Yes,
out.
straight
the-
away. Once your offer has been accepted, you get your geometer in straight away, because then you give him a certain amount of time. You've got a certain amount of time to check out this whole apartment.
Yes.
Okay. If, for instance, there's maybe on plan from the council that is not 100% correct, that can be corrected as long as it's done by when you do the atto, that you take title.
When you complete the contract.
Yes,
the completion
that
date.
you take title, okay. As long as it's done by then, and it's possible to do that actual correction, that all gets stated in your preliminary contract. But it could be that sometimes there is something dramatically wrong with the apartment, and you need permission, like from the Le Belle Arte, which is a different department.
Right, so we
Which
better
is-
explain that the Belle Arte is a government
Agency.
that protects historic buildings.
Exactly. And that is much more complicated and can take a year, it can take 2 years to get the correction done, okay, which they might even not let you correct it. Then it's your option if you want to pull out of the deal with no strings attached. You all know all this before you go and sign your preliminary contract.
Before you exchange money.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Generally, the seller also has a geometer, okay, and the two geometry, they exchange all the paperwork.
Yes, they link, they have their own
Exactly.
which is actually helps a lot.
Yes.
If this seems complicated, I do a quick summary at the end of the video. And please do not forget to subscribe and press the notification bell. If you enjoyed the video, please put a like. Thank you very much.
The other thing at this point is a lot of foreigners feel that they should have a lawyer as well. And you can employ a lawyer, but actually the most important person in your life is the geometer.
Yes. A lawyer, I don't see the point of having a lawyer. The geometer that knows the actual laws to date.
To do with property.
Yes, regarding the property.
The property.
The lawyer could maybe help with perhaps a residency or something.
Yes.
But not to do with the property.
And there is another thing too, that at some stage the buyer gets a notary involved, which is a form of state lawyer.
You only appoint a notaio, which in Italian it's called notaio, to the compromesso for the title deed, because the geometra works with the notaio. They give all the info to the notaio regarding the property, and the notaio then, before doing the title deed, he checks out everything, and he then prepares the title deed.
And also we should say that the buyer has the right to choose the notary.
The buyer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
But on the other hand, the notary is actually really working for the state. He wants to make sure that the house is bureaucratically correct.
Well, that absolutely. It's by law he is obligated to check that out.
That. At this point, there are taxes to pay, and this is where the difference between a non-resident and a resident works, isn't it? That when you buy a house, if you're a non-resident, you pay a much higher rate of tax than if you're a resident.
Sure. Yes.
It's like a
And
stamp duty. I don't know in America, in English called stamp duty.
Yeah, it's a property tax.
Property tax.
Yes, property tax. Okay. If you are a resident, already a resident in Italy, you can buy a property as a first-time homeowner, and there your tax is 2%.
The land registry, it's not the
Yes,
commercial value.
Exactly.
Yes, and this actually stated on the house documents from the land registry, and it's called valore catastale in Italian.
Exactly. And otherwise, a non-resident would pay 9%.
9%.
Yeah, and if you want to become a resident, if you're going through the visa process and so on, and you want to become a resident, you have to do it within 18 months of your purchase of the property.
From the day you take title,
Yes.
the day of your atto,
So,
Yes.
from then you've got 18 months
To sort out your residency.
to sort out your residency.
One thing to ask, but when you buy a property, I'm saying now, if the law has changed, I don't know at this precise moment, but I buy a property, so I exchange money for the compromesso. Is the money going to the seller's account?
Yes, straight.
Yes, straight into seller's account.
Yes, you have to pay the actual seller.
Seller.
At the compromesso, the seller gets paid, and generally you pay about 30%. It's an option. I mean, you can pay 20, you can pay...
Okay, it's an agreement. I mean,
Yes, it's an agreement. It's what you've put in your offer, how you've structured your offer.
Also depends.
can that amount sometimes be held by the notary or not?
No.
No, it must go to the seller.
The compromesso serves a lot because once you've signed a compromesso, the seller can't pull out.
Yes.
Okay. If he pulls out, he has to give you back your money and double it.
Yeah.
Okay. But at the same time, you also, as the buyer, you really can't pull out because you will lose your money.
Your
Okay.
money, yeah.
And very often what happens is perhaps a property needs like say 6 months because it needs some kind of a permit, some kind of a correction permit that needs to be put in at the council or something, and it might take a little longer. Now, imagine if you have now appointed your geometra, because you have to pay him and everything else, and you haven't done a compromesso, and the owner turns around and says, oh, no, sorry, someone else has come in and they've given me 10,000 euros more,
Yes.
I'm pulling out, then you've spent all that money. So the compromesso is actually a guarantee.
That it's your property.
And generally you don't leave too much time between your offer and the compromesso
Yes.
to actually tie in the seller.
But you can leave as much time
between your compromesso
and the title.
So in that
deed.
case,
If you take a client to see a flat, they mustn't go and see that flat with another agent.
No,
Is that-
absolutely not, because what will end up happening is you will pay double commission.
That's a very good point.
That's it, double commission, because that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So pick an agent that you like, you trust, you can communicate
And
with.
let that agent work for you.
Because we should say that the general commission here is 3% for the buyer and 3% for the seller.
Generally, yes.
Generally.
And then you can come to your own agreements.
Yes, there is always room
Plus
for...
EVA. Don't forget the EVA.
IVA, which is the value-added tax that
Yes.
in Europe, in Italy is 22%. It is 22% on the fees.
On
On
the
the fees,
fees, not
exactly.
on the price of the
Not
house.
on the price, no.
Just in case you're really
Yes,
getting
yes.
worried at this point. Thing is that when you come to sign the atto, which is the final contract of your house, and you will go to the notary, you can either go to the notary or you can appoint a power of attorney if you live a long way away. Can
Yes.
they appoint you, for example?
Well, yes, you can. Generally, the power of attorney, there's a fee involved.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not part of an agent's commission
No.
to do that.
This power of attorney must be able to speak Italian. They must understand the atto. And
Yes,
if you're going
definitely.
yourself, you have to employ a translator.
Another thing about the fees. When do you pay the estate agent the fees?
Generally, the estate agent gets paid at the compromesso.
So when you the
Okay.
first contract, when you
Yes, the
exchange
preliminary contract.
Yes.
And at the preliminary contract, the agent needs to register that contract by law. Also pay a certain amount of already the registration taxes at the preliminary contract, which
But-
then gets deducted at
the
the,
end.
at the title deed.
But at that compromesso, it's not necessarily done in the notary's office.
No,
You can do it
no.
in the agency.
It's not necessary at all to do it in the notario's office, because why must you pay a notary 2 fees? For what?
Yeah.
The geometer has got the absolute authority to prepare it, and it's legal. It's a legal document, and it gets registered, so there's no problem. If the geometer is not sure how to structure the sale, okay, he might actually phone the notaio and actually say, look, I've got this and this and this situation. How can we structure it? And the notario will tell him, do it in this and this and this way.
The other thing that I think people get confused about is whether foreigners can get an Italian mortgage.
There are brokers that work here. You can get a mortgage, okay. It's complicated. They ask for a lot of obvious paperwork, but you can get a mortgage.
Up to 50% of the value of the property.
And generally it's only for 15 years. Do you as an agent, which obviously isn't exactly part of your job, but with foreigners, do you help them set up things like utilities? And people seem to not necessarily realize you have to register for your local taxes, like IMU, which is like your council tax, and also rubbish tax, which is separate to your council tax in Italy.
Regarding the utilities, what I do is I've got a person that I present to the client, and they do all the runarounds and set up the utilities, and that includes the garbage tax. Regarding the yearly taxes, IMU, you could ask the geometer
Yes.
to set it up for you.
What I like to say that it looks complicated because probably people are not familiar with these things, but in reality everything works out pretty well. So to sum up all this meeting today, so I'm a foreign person, I come to Italy, I look around Lucca, I say, oh, I like this place very much and I would like to buy a property here. So I walk into an estate agent that I like. The estate agent listen to my requirements, and they are going to show me properties around the area that I like. Then I like one property in particular, and I would like to buy it. So what I do first is that I am going to put an offer in a formal way with a letter.
Codice fiscale.
Right. You first try to get the codice fiscale,
Yeah.
the tax code. After that, you can place an official offer on the property.
You could even put in an offer without the tax code. Okay,
Yes.
you can. As long as by the compromesso,
You've got your
you've got
tax-
that tax code,
Tax code.
because then your compromesso is a legal document,
Yes,
so you
exactly.
need it.
Then, next stage, I will employ a geometer.
And he's the most important figure at this in your buying process, really.
Absolutely.
Very important.
Yeah.
Yes. So the geometer will check, first of all, if the property structurally is fine, and also we start making the first checks is legally fine. So it means to go to the local authorities, to the technical office, and find out if there is anything that's been done, I mean, not according to the rules in the past. Then proceed towards the preliminary contract, the compromesso. Then after this stage, we have signed a preliminary contract, and this contract is actually registered in the
Yes,
tax
it's a
office.
legal contract.
It's a legal contract. And we decide in this contract that we want to complete and move in, let's say, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, depending also if there's anything that we have to resolve in the meantime, or if there's nothing, depends on our circumstance. For instance, we have some funds can be released in 3 months' time, so we want something after 3 months. And then at that stage, at this stage, the buyer has the privilege to employ a notary
Who works for the state,
for the state.
Yes,
who makes sure that the property that you're buying is bureaucratically in order.
In order.
yes,
Then proceeds toward the completion of the contract.
exactly.
So we set up a date, and the date of the contract, the buyer and the seller have to be there with the notary,
Exactly.
and
And the geometra.
and the geometry, if anything that to be discussed. Then you pay the balance, and you get the keys.
The keys.
The keys.
And your dream starts.
Your dream
Yes,
starts.
exactly. Yeah.
Another thing we forgot to say that normally you pay the agent's fees, which are 3% negotiable plus the tax on the fees at the time of the compromesso, which is as we said, is the preliminary contract.
It's pretty
Pretty
straightforward.
Yes.
So to finish up, we just want to thank you, Lorrain, for your time and explaining it all to us. And
It's my pleasure.
helping unravel and making it possible for people to dream of coming and living here.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoy our videos, please subscribe, leave a like and activate the notification bell. You just need a Google account and it's free. It helps our community enormously. Thank you very much.
Salute!
Salute!
Salute! Gibele! Chin chin!
Chin chin.